Hello, everyone. I would like to thank the Danish President of the Council of the European Union for her welcome today. We are here with the foreign ministers of the European Union for an informal meeting following a week marked by intense diplomatic activity on Ukraine. First of all, with the continuation of the efforts that were made this summer by the President of the Republic and his counterparts to affirm the European unity and its support for Ukraine, and also to highlight the importance, the essential character, when we hope that peace negotiations can open, of security guarantees. And this week, for the first time, the heads of state of the countries participating in the coalition of volunteers that France and the United Kingdom have constituted went into detail with their American colleagues the guarantees that would effectively allow peace to be sustainable. These works will continue next week at the level of heads of state and government. But you can see it, Europe in this area is taking things in hand. And these security guarantees will only make sense as soon as the hostilities have ceased. The murderous and bloody strike of Russia this week demonstrates once again that Vladimir Putin, at this stage, has no intention of putting an end to the imperialist war, to the war of colonization that he started more than 3 years ago against Ukraine. And if, indeed, in a few days, at the end of the 2 weeks, the delay that he had given to President Trump, Vladimir Putin continues to oppose a high-level meeting with the President of Ukraine, then we will have to force him by emphasizing the sanctions of the United States, but also the European sanctions. And this subject will be, of course, at the heart of our discussions this morning in Copenhagen. I will come to make the proposals that France has developed so that we can exhaust the resources that Vladimir Putin is investing in this war, and strain the Russian war machine by targeting the energy sector, the finance sector, but perhaps also some of the civil sector that continues to indirectly support the Russian war effort. On Iran, then, on Thursday, with my German colleague and my British colleague, we announced the decision of our 3 countries to notify the United Nations the reapplication of the sanctions against Iran that had been raised 10 years ago. We did this after several months of intense negotiations at all levels, from the President of the Republic to the diplomat of the Cadors. What are these sanctions? Well, these are global embargoes by the United Nations on arms, banks, but also on nuclear equipment that had been raised 10 years ago as a counterpart to a mastery of the Iranian nuclear program. A few weeks ago, we proposed to Iran to report this decision on the condition that Iran can demonstrate its goodwill with very simple actions, consisting of affirming its intention to solve the problems by negotiating, but also to reopen an active and in good faith cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Iran did not agree to these actions, so we decided to notify on Thursday this very heavy decision. What will happen now? Well, a period of 30 days will open, at the end of which these sanctions will be reapplied. Then, in a second period, European sanctions could also be reapplied, unless, of course, Iran agrees in this period of 30 days to the actions we have asked of it very clearly. in which case we could consider to report the application of these sanctions. The door of diplomacy remains open. Yesterday, in Toulon, in the south of France, the 25th French-German was a turning point of mobilization, determination, and ambition. A turning point of mobilization because Chancellor Merz came with a large number of German government ministers who had worked with their French counterparts for months to refine roadmap in a large number of areas. A turning point of determination to deepen our friendship, our relationship, and our cooperation. In the areas ranging from artificial intelligence to defense, through space, culture, but also defense. Defense, which was the subject of a French-German Security and Defense Council at the end of this French-German Council. And a turning point of ambition because these projects that we want to share, we want them for our two peoples, but also for Europe, to make it more effective and stronger in a troubled world. And this week is also the continuation of the absolute tragedy which is taking place in Gaza. We have the opportunity to reaffirm in European terms our expectation of an immediate ceasefire, of the liberation of all hostages of Hamas, which must be disarmed, and of the access without hindrance of humanitarian aid. From this point of view, we had formulated expectations with the Israeli authorities, the opening of access to humanitarian aid to put an end to famine. We had asked for the resumption of payments due by the Israeli authorities to the Palestinian authorities, more than 2 billion euros. We had asked the Israeli authorities to give up their colonization project, in particular the E1 project, 3,000 housing, which threatens to cut in two the Cisjordan. It must be noted our demands have not been satisfied, and this is why, following the review made by the European Commission, we will have today to prepare the work of heads of state and government who could, in the coming weeks, take restrictive measures, as France has at national level. These are the subjects that will occupy us today. And I do not forget that September will also be marked by the General Assembly of the United Nations.